batch of His Grace Gaur Vilas Prabhu. So thank you very much for allowing me. So Prabhuji mentioned that third canto, chapter 31, verse number 33. Till then, it has been covered in the previous classes. So we are supposed to move on with verse number 34. So just before beginning the current today's verse, just couple of minutes, just to a small quick recap. So if you remember, in the chapter 29, in the very beginning, so Mother Devahuti makes couple of inquiries. As an answer to those inquiries, Lord Kapila is speaking now, starting from chapter 29 onwards. Having heard from Lord Kapila in chapter 25, 26, in 25 about Bhakti, 26 and 27 about Jnana, in 28 about Ashtanga Yoga, now Mother Devahuti is making an inquiry. Having heard about Sankhya and Yoga, Mother Devahuti again desires to know about Bhakti with its different types, since she should perform that process, though she has already heard about Bhakti in chapter 25. Thus she inquires. So about the path of Bhakti, the process of Bhakti, and the result of practicing Bhakti, Mother Devahuti heard about in chapter 25. Then in detail, Lord Kapila explains about Sankhya Yoga and attaining liberation in chapter 25, 26 and 27, and different angas of Ashtanga Yoga she heard about in chapter 28. So having heard Jnana and Yoga in detail, now she wants to know about Bhakti also in detail. So there she is asking inquiries in the first 6 verses of the 29th chapter. So my dear Lord, you have described the characteristics of the elements such as Mahatattva, by which their very natures in divisions are known. Now you should tell me about Bhakti, the very root cause of knowledge of those elements, without which they cannot be known. Just like you talked about Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga in detail with their different angas, please speak about Bhakti also with its different angas in detail. So as an answer to that, Lord Kapila speaks about Bhakti in the mode of goodness, Bhakti in the mode of passion, Bhakti in the mode of ignorance, Bhakti in the mode of pure goodness, Nirguna Bhakti in the beginning of chapter 29. And then Mother Devahuti asks that to begin Bhakti, one needs a little detachment. Thus, she asks about detachment. Please describe about the various birth and deaths of the Jivas, hearing about which a person becomes completely detached from the world. So in order to practice Bhakti or Jnana or Ashtanga Yoga, one need to have some detachment. So detachment comes by hearing the temporary nature of this material world. So thus she asks about, please speak about the samsara, the nature of the material world. So as an answer to this question, now Lord Kapila starts speaking about chapter 30, 31, 32. And also she asks one more question. Kindly also explain about time, which is one of your forms. By fear of time, people perform auspicious acts. So speak about the true nature and the characteristics of time. So hearing which a person will perform auspicious acts, etc. Hare Krishna, you are not able to hear my voice? Is it okay? Audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
It is audible. No problem.
What about Arvind Prabhu? You are able to hear?
Yeah, now I am able to hear, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you.
Previously, I was not able, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So these are the 3 questions. And of course, Lord Kapila talks about time also, the nature of time in the 29th chapter at the end. So these are the 3 inquiries. Please tell me in detail about the path of Bhakti, which is the root cause of the knowledge of Sankhya. Please tell about the samsara, by whose explanation one becomes detached. Please describe about the nature of time, in whose sphere people perform auspicious acts. So first question and third question were answered in chapter 29. They are done. So in chapter 29, Lord Kapila describes the qualities of Bhakti affected by the gunas and poor Bhakti, as well as giving respect to living beings according to their gradation and the power of time. That was talked about in the chapter 29. So then, here ends the topic of Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So there, starting from chapter 30 onwards, new topic begins. So Lord Kapila shown to his mother in 5 chapters about pure bhakti. He talked about pure bhakti in chapter 25 and 29. He talked about bhakti mixed with gunas in chapter 29. He talked about jnana in 26 and 27. He talked about Ashtanga Yoga in chapter 28. Now in 3 chapters, 30, 31, 32, Lord Kapila talks about the results arising from activities of tamas, rajas, and sattva. So, in the previous 5 chapters, Lord Kapila spoke in detail about bhakti, jnana, and Ashtanga Yoga. Now, in the upcoming 3 chapters, he is going to talk about karma. In Bhagavad Gita, we hear about 3 concepts of karma. Karma, akarma, vikarma. Vikarma is forbidden activities. Karma is the prescribed activities. And akarma is those activities which does not cause any bondage, etc. But here in teachings of Lord Kapila is going to talk about vikarma in 2 chapters. What are the different variety of vikarmic activities? Those activities performed in the mode of ignorance, activities performed in the mode of passion. Chapter 30, chapter 31 talks about the vikarmic activities. And chapter 32 talks about sakama karma and nishkama karma, which are actually the prescribed activities from the Vedic literatures. So Lord Kapila explains now in 3 chapters. So basically, to begin bhakti, one needs a little detachment. Thus she asks about detachment. Please tell about samsara. By use explanations, one become detached. So in order to get detached from this material world, get ready to go back home back to Godhead, we need to be detached from this material world. We need to stay away from the possessiveness of the objects of this material world, for which we need to hear about this material world. Thus, Lord Kapila explains now in 3 chapters the suffering of material life produced by various actions in 3 gunas without bhakti to the Lord. So these 3 chapters basically talks about our activities that we perform under the influence of 3 modes without the element of bhakti. So what kind of activities one performs in these 3 modes, what kind of results one would get, that is the subject matter of the next 3 chapters. In chapter 30, Lord Kapila explains about samsara of a person in tamas, in the mode of ignorance. So chapter 30, Lord Kapila explains the pains in youth, old age, death, and pains in hell of persons agitated by attachment to wife and sons. So when a person is in the mode of ignorance, what kind of activity they perform while living in the youth, in old age, at the time of death, and after death, what kind of painful situation one goes through in order to fulfill the demands of one's own body, mind, and one's own family members. All those are explained. And then in chapter 31, Lord Kapila explains about the pains of the jiva while in the womb, as an infant, at the time of birth, and as an infant, and as a small child, as well as the bhakti of the jiva as it speaks in the womb are explained. So they are the various topics that are being discussed in the chapter 31. So now chapter 31, Lord Kapila describes the samsara of the jiva in the mode of passion. So I just put verse number 30 onwards, quickly run through 3 verses. So in 30th verse, having talked about the pains while living in the womb, the pains of the jiva while living in the womb, the pains at the time of birth, the pains as an infant while the jiva is growing up, as a child, these are all explained. Now the person has become youth and adult. Now what happens to the person having come to youth and adult? That is being talked about in verse number 30 onwards. So suffering of the jiva after he comes out of the womb, 20 to 31. All these verses talks about as one grows, what kind of miseries one goes through. So here it is said that the ignorant jiva and the foolish Jiva in a body made up of the 5 elements constantly thinks in terms of I and mine, accepting the impermanent gross body of the self, asadgraha. So though one is actually the Atma, while living in the gross body, the Jiva identifies with the gross body, and as a result of which one always thinks of aham mameti. I am this body, all the byproducts of this body are mine. So that is the concept. So what are the further symptoms of Rajoguna? His body, since though his body is made up of 5 gross elements, however, he thinks that the body is himself and objects belongs to that body as I and mine. He accepts impermanent things rather than the eternal things. So this person does not worry about the Atma, does not worry about Bhakti, which are eternal. Instead, he is only worried about the gross body and the byproducts of that gross body. For their well-being only, he dedicates his life. Then in verse number 31, it is said that for his body, he performs actions by which he becomes bound up and continues samsara. That body continually gives suffering and becomes bound to karmic reactions by ignorance. So in order to fulfill the demands of his own gross body and the gross body of his own wife and children and family members, friends and relatives, he performs so many sinful activities. As a result of that, this person becomes bound in this material world. So for his body, for maintaining his body, he performs actions by which he becomes bound. That body continues to give suffering such as hell to the Jiva and becomes bound by karma through ignorance. His foolishness is that by doing sinful actions, the body gives suffering. Even though he is going through suffering, he does not understand that he is getting the reaction of his own activities. So he simply thinks and moves on. He simply thinks that this is also part of life and moves on. He never introspects why he is going through this kind of suffering. If the human enjoys in his life by associating with sinful persons with efforts for satisfying the genital and stomach, he enters hell as before. This person, this Jiva, who being influenced by mode of passion, performs all the activities only for the satisfaction of the demands of the genital and stomach, udaropastha vegam. As a result, he goes to hell, just like the person, the mode of ignorance, went to hell. In the previous chapter, the person, the mode of ignorance, for maintaining his own self and his own family members, he takes on to different occupations such as stealing, robbing, killing others, cheating others, and etc. etc. So many things. So as a result, that person goes to hell. Similarly, this person also, in order to fulfill the demands of the body and mind, and also the demands of the family members and other friends and relatives, he performs sinful activities and as a result goes to hell. As before, he will again get a body fit for hellish punishments and enter hell. This implies also that if instead of associating with sinful people, so just by associating similarly minded sinful persons, he will perform sinful activities to fulfill the demands of genital and stomach, and he will eventually go to hell. Similarly, if one associates if instead of associating with sinful people, if he enjoys in his life with efforts for serving Lord Krishna again, he will attain Lord Krishna. Instead of associating with sinful people and performing sinful activities, if one associates with devotees and performs devotional activities, one will attain Krishna. So that is the understanding. So association matters. So now, from the association of sinful people, truth, cleanliness, mercy, silence, intelligence, beauty, shyness, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, and good fortune all are destroyed. Satyam Saucham Daya Maunam Buddhi Srir Hir Yashakshama Shamo Damo Bagas Cheti Yat Sangad Yati Sankshayam. Yat Sangat. By the association of sinful people, all these wonderful qualities, Yati Sankshayam, gradually will be destroyed. That is the result of bad association. So by the bad association, one will destroy the 12 very important godly qualities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. These 12 wonderful good qualities will be destroyed by the association with sinful people. So that was the indicating. So now the question is, the previous two verses talked about bad association, bad association, bad association. Actually, what is bad association? Who consists of bad association? So that is being described in the next verse. So describing such persons, Lord Kapila forbids their association in the next 3 verses, 34 to 36. So we'll recite the verse together, and then afterwards one of you can read the translation, then we discuss the verse. Teshu asanteshu modeshu kanditasmashu asadushu sangam na kurya chosheshu yoshis krida mrugeshu cha.
Teshu shanteshu mudeshu Khanditatma swada sadhushu Sangam na kuryat chocheshu Yoshit mrugeshu cha.
Okay. Someone can read the translation.
One should not
One
associate.
should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman.
Yeah. Now in the couple of verses, Lord Kapila is going to talk about what is the meaning of bad association. In whose association, the 12 godly qualities will be diminished. Yati Sankshayam. One should not associate with Sangam na Kuryat, violent and foolish. Ashanteshu, those who are not at all peaceful, who are always agitated, who always look after agitating others. They are like violent. And Mudeshu, who are foolish, who destroy their own self. Kandita Atmashu, who perform various activities which lead to the degradation of their own self. And the sinful, Asadushu, the most lamentable people, Shosheshu, those people who are always lamenting, their association also acts like contagious, and we also become lamentable. And the playthings of women, Yoshit Krida Mrugeshcha. And finally, those who are the playthings of women. All these different variety of people are supposed to be avoided. So that is being indicated here by Lord Kapila. Kandita Asmashu means those who destroy themselves because of degrading themselves. The Atma cannot be destroyed. So Atma cannot be destroyed, Atma cannot be cut into pieces, Atma cannot be died. So the understanding is one who degrades one's own consciousness, that is Kandita Atmashu. So that is the understanding.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
One question. There are some devotees who are sometimes violent, or they lament most of the times. So then they are, of course, neophyte devotees or devotees which we come across. Then we should associate with them or not?
We can give our association to them in order to help them, but we should not take their association. So here, giving association means it is like two-way. As we study in Nectar of Instruction, Dadati Pratigranati Gruyamakyati Pruchati Bhumte Bhojayate Chaiva Shadvidam Prit Lakshanam. So Guhyamakyati Pruchati. So inquiring confidentially and sharing one's own confidential topics with others. So there could be many people are too much lamenting. So one can give one's association in order to uplift them from their current lamentable situation, instead of taking their lamentation upon ourselves and getting affected by it. So that is understanding here.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
So this basically guya makyati, because suppose if a person is addicted to smoking cigarette, so if one may be friend of that person, but that friendship should not go to the extent that just because he is my friend and his smoking habit also should become my habit, like that one starts smoking. It should not be to that extent. So something like that.
Okay, thank you.
One should not make their ideology as our own ideology. So that is guya makyati pruchati. So it should not go to that extent. If it goes to that extent, so we are actually becoming kandita atmashu. We are actually degrading ourselves, our own soul. So in that way.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
That is understanding. So now in the next verse, Lord Kapila continues the same theme. He says that Na tatasya bhaven moho bandhaschanya prasangata yoshis sanga yata pumsho yata tassangi sangata.
Na tatasya bhaven moho
bandhaschanya prasangataha
yoshit
yoshitsangat yatha pumso yatha tatsangi sangataha.
Yeah, someone can read the translation.
The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women.
So in these three verses, 34, 35, 36, Srila Prabhupada evidently says that if at all one want to progress in one's own Krishna consciousness, one need to be careful of this bad association. So that is the point. Prabhupada repeating again and again in the purport in these three, the same point in these three purports. The restriction of association with such foolish persons especially meant for those who are in the line of advancement in Krishna consciousness. For a person seeking advancement in Krishna consciousness, such association is more dangerous than suicide. In this purport, Prabhupada says that attachment to women is so contaminating that one becomes attached to the condition of material life, not only by the association of women, but by the contaminated association of persons who are too attached to them. So before only, I would like to request all of you. So literally, these verses seems to be so offensive to women. So kindly do not come to any conclusion at this point of time. 3-4 verses later, there is one interesting phenomena is explained. Then I will talk about what is the understanding behind these verses. I don't want to tell right now. So maybe a little later, around 40th verse. In the 40th verse, we'll explain about that. Till then, do not go by the literal explanation of these verses, the meaning of these words. So apparently these verses seems to be a little offensive. So why only women are condemned like this? Why not men? So such kind of question might come in our mind. So let us go through the verses, and when it comes to verse number 40, we understand what is the concept behind these verses being spoken by Lord Kapila. So here, in the previous verse, Lord Kapila mentioned that in order to safeguard one's own spiritual progress, one need to stay away from those people who are violent, who are foolish, who are degrading their own self, who are sinful, and who are the plaything in the hands of a woman. Yoshit Krida Murgeshu. One need to keep them oneself away from them. If at all one continues in their association, one will be subjected by those bad qualities, because these qualities are contagious. So now Lord Kapila is saying that man's bondage and bewilderment is not due to attachment to objects as much as it is due to his association with women, Yoshi Sangad, and to his association with men who are associated with women, who are attached to associate with women. So here three things are there. The entire world which is in front of our eyes, which is in front of our personality, is divided to three parts. One is all the inanimate objects. Objects such as mobile, laptop, the building, the city, country, etc., etc. All the objects. And the women and the men who are attached to women. There is a gradation of these three. We may develop attachment toward the various objects, but that attachment is only one-sided. We only have attachment to those objects. So when we lose that attachment, we lose that interest, so there will be no more attachment. There is only one-sided attachment, so it will not cause so much bandage. But attachment to women is two-sided. That can cause bondage. So attachment to various objects, anya prasangata, all other things, all the inanimate objects is only one-sided. So there could be a minimal chance of bondage. It may not be so much. If we lose the taste, if we lose the interest, they will not cause any bondage. Even though they may be in front of us, they will not disturb us. But attachment to women is two-sided. So if the attachment to, if the two-sided attachment between man and woman is strong enough, that strong attachment will cause bondage. And then, but even in that association between man and woman, there could be a detachment at one point of time. As long as there is strong attachment, that can cause bondage, but there could be some distaste between both. So that may lead to detachment with each other. That may not cause further bondage. But more than that, even in the distaste between man and woman, if this person comes in the association of another man who is fond of womanly attachment, that person may inspire this man. Okay, you may not be happy with this woman, but go to that some other woman, so you may be happy. Like that, other man can inspire this man. So the tat sangi sangataha, the association of a man who is very much attached to women, whatever talk, whatever inspirational talk that he gives will inspire a man who is already attached with one woman, can develop attachment to some other woman. So like this, the gradation of attachment is given. The inanimate objects will give little attachment. The women give little bit more, but the man who is attached to women will give most attachment. So he is the most dangerous. So this is the gradation of the bondage one can get with the objects and people one come across in one's own life. So that is the understanding.
Prabhuji, one question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Now, in the purport, it said in Kali Yuga, association with women is very strong. Is this true? Because even in Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, there were such things which were happening. It is not that it is only new to Kali Yuga.
Okay. So, my dear Prabhuji, I would like to tell you your answer in the verse number 40.
Okay.
So because I am telling that now we are literally reading what is there in the verse and translation, we are literally reading. The concept behind that, I will explain in the verse number 40.
Okay.
Then everything becomes clear.
Okay.
But for you, Satya Yuga is predominant by mode of pure goodness. Treta Yuga, goodness plus passion. Dwapara Yuga, passion plus ignorance. Kali Yuga,
only
is
ignorance.
Predominated by mode of ignorance. In general, the people in Kali Yuga, what kind of activity they perform is what has been described in the previous chapter, chapter 30. The majority of people perform all the activities that are being mentioned in the previous chapter. A medium number of people perform activities as it is mentioned in the current chapter. Very few people perform activities as it will be described in the next chapter. And very minority people will practice Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Are you getting, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji, I get it.
Majority will practice the activities of chapter 30.
Uh-huh.
Medium number of people practice the activities that are mentioned in the chapter 31.
Okay.
Minority will practice those activities that are mentioned in chapter 32 that eventually we will discuss. And very minority people will practice Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga.
Okay.
So kindly understand.
Understood. Thank you.
And the concept of association that we will discuss in chapter 40. What kind of association we are talking about? We are hinting at that we will discuss in chapter 40, verse number 40.
Okay.
So till then, Prajapati swam duhitram dishtva tadrupa darshita rohit bhutam so anvadavad riksharupi hatatripa.
Prajapati swam duhitaram
Drishva
Tadrupadarshita
rohitam swabhavad raksharupi hatatrapaha.
Someone read the translation.
At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind.
Okay. So in the previous part, last sentence Prabhupada writes, in other words, attraction for women's association is the cause of the material conditional life. And anyone interested in being freed from the conditional life must detach himself from the association of women. Okay. These lines also may create an impulse, especially in the heart of the Matajis. So why so much condemnation about women only? So I'm again hinting the concept of women we will discuss in verse number 40. Till then, kindly be patient. And now this is about conditioned souls. So then Lord Kapila says that what to speak of ordinary conditioned souls? Even all the way up to Lord Brahma, we can see the same bewilderment by the form of woman. Not only the human beings, even all the way up to Lord Brahma, the same bewilderment can be seen at the sight of a woman. Brahma, Lord Brahma, seeing his own daughter, became bewildered by that form and taking the form of a stag, devoid of shame, pursued her when she took the form of a doe. Previously, in Canto 3, chapter 12, I remember, yes, I think chapter 12 only, it was said that while Lord Brahma was creating many living entities, as a matter of creation, he also created a girl whose name is Vak Devi. So the appearance of that girl was so attractive that Lord Brahma developed some attraction to her. So then, since it was forbidden, the association between male and female forms during that point of time, so that girl transformed herself into a doe, Riksharupi, and Lord Brahma, being attracted to her, transformed himself into a stag and followed after her. So this is the nature of this material world. There is a bewilderment even in the form of Brahma also. So we need to accept the reality of this material world. One should not say that a woman cannot bewilder the intelligence of great souls endowed with discriminating knowledge. How can you say that Lord Brahma is the first created being, is direct son of Lord Vishnu. He is the personality made up of intelligence. He has lot of discrimination. He can understand what is good, what is bad. But still a person of that discrimination can be bewildered by the charms of a womanly form. Even Lord Brahma, taking the form of a buck, pursued his daughter in the form of a doe. That is the nature of this material world. The material world itself has that bewildering potency. So one need to accept the reality. So it is like that. So Prabhupada writes about Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva also gets bewildered in this material world sometimes. Lord Brahma went after his own daughter, Vagdevi, and Lord Shiva went after Mohini Murti. Then what to speak of us? So like that, it is there. So it doesn't mean that we can take an excuse. Okay, Lord Brahma went after and Lord Shiva went after, so we can go after freely. Not like that. So the understanding is that even a person of that highest knowledge, like that of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are also bewildered by the charms of a womanly form. Therefore, if at all one wants to go back, come back to Godhead, one need to be careful. So that is the understanding. That is the hint. Here we should never ever make an attempt to criticize either Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. They should not be at fault. They should not be found guilty. They are great personalities. So that is an entirely different subject matter. So we need to understand the nature of the material world. The material world can influence even Brahma and Shiva. Then what to speak of we who are nowhere in comparison to these great personalities. Therefore, we should be careful of bad association. If at all we are desiring to come back to Godhead. So that is the precautionary note we need to understand by reading through these verses. So now, who can save or who can safeguard oneself from the bewildering charms of the material nature? That is mentioned in the next verse. Lord Kapila says, Tas srishta srishta srishteshu konvakandita dhipuman rishim narayanamrite yoshin mayyeha mayaya.
Satrushta
सृष्टेषु सृष्टेषु नवखण्डिताधिपुमान् श्रीनारायणं
Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayana is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of a woman.
Yeah, there are two meanings to this verse. As Prabhupada states, except Naranarayan Rishi, no one else can be immune to the influence of Maya. That is one meaning. So before discussing the second meaning, I'll just read the couple of lines from the previous purport. Prabhupada writes in the last line, last sentence, only by engaging in the service of Madana Mohana can one curb the dictates of Madana, Cupid. Otherwise, attempts to control the sense will fail. That is what is being mentioned in this verse. Tat srishta srishta srishteshu. So if you see in the previous verse, Prajapati Swam Duhitram. Here Prajapati stands for Lord Brahma. Even personality like Lord Brahma, being bewildered by the charms of the womanly form, followed after his daughter. Then after Brahma, he is being mentioned in this one. Tasrishta means Tat refers to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma's sons. And Tasrishta Srishta, sons of Lord Brahma, that is grandsons. And their sons, that is great grandsons of Lord Brahma. Among the sons of Brahma, their sons, and the descendants of those sons. So Lord Brahma's sons, Lord Brahma's grandsons, Lord Brahma's great grandsons. Among all of them, only among those who do not worship Lord Narayana, which of them does not have their intelligence destroyed by Maya in the form of a woman? Among the sons of Lord Brahma, among the grandsons of Lord Brahma, among the great grandsons of Lord Brahma, only those people who worship Lord Narayana, remaining all are bewildered by Maya. Because those people who worship Lord Brahma, among the sons of Brahma, grandsons of Brahma, great grandsons of Brahma, their intelligence is protected by Lord Narayana. Otherwise, rest all people's intelligence will be bewildered by Maya. They will become subjected to bad association. They will perform sinful activities. As a result, they will go to hell. As a result, they will be bound in this material world. So that is understanding. Except those who firmly take shelter of Lord Narayana's lotus feet very firmly, very sincerely and seriously. Otherwise, there is no hope that one is not bewildered by the influence of Maya. In the form of a woman. Maya in the form of a woman. Yoshit Maya iha Maya. So my dear mother, in this material world, the form of Maya in the form of Yoshit Maya, in the form of a woman. So like that, it is being mentioned here. Among those created by Lord Brahma, such as Marichi, Brahma sons are Marichi and etc. And those created by Marichi, that is Marichi's sons, such as Kashyapa, and further descendants such as Devatas, human beings, animals, etc. etc. Those persons who do not worship Lord Narayana, whose intelligence is not disturbed by Maya in the form of woman. Except those people who worship Lord Narayana, all others' intelligence is bewildered by Maya in the form of a woman. So that is the understanding. That's what it says. Here Lord Kapila says that except those devotees who take shelter of Lord's lotus feet very firmly, all others are not at all immune to the influence of Maya in the form of a woman. So it is like that. So Prabhupada writes last sentence in this purport. He says that woman therefore is the wonderful creation of Maya to keep the conditioned soul in shackles or in bandage. So it is like that. So now Lord Kapila continues. Balam me pasya mayaya Sri Maya Jaino Dishan Ya Karoti Padakrantan Bruvi Jrumbe na Kevalam.
Balam
me
pashyamaya
Srimaya Jaino Dishan Ya Karoti Padakrantam Jrumbena Kevalam.
Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of woman who by the mere movement of her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip.
Here Lord Kapila gives an example, a wonderful striking example, how Maya in the form of a woman can control the most strongest person. Here Lord Kapila says that, see the strength of my Maya, Pashyame Maya Balam. See the strength of my Maya in the form of a woman, Sri Maya, who kicks the king into submission, for sure by the movements of her eyebrows. Even a king who is ruling the entire world, but he will be controlled by Maya in the form of a woman. How? A graphical example is shown here. Even the king, conquering all directions, when he returns home, entering the inner chambers, he is greeted by his wife as follows. So having gone to war, having conquered all the neighboring kingdoms, having established superiority over all the neighboring kingdoms, when the king comes home, when he enters into inner chambers, he will be welcomed by his wife. The wife says that, giving me up, you go out to conquer, to enjoy other women. What a rascal are you? Hinting this with a movement of their eyebrows, the woman kicks the men who bow down before them in submission. The woman does not say anything. Just by her eyebrows, she hints at the king, saying that giving me up, you go out to conquer the kingdoms and to enjoy other women. What kind of a rascal are you? So one does not have to search out reason for the queen's action, for it is with certainty. Kevalam. It is certain that Brui Vijrumbena Kevalam. Just by our eyebrows, even a king who conquers the entire universe is conquered by the woman's eyebrows. So this is the strength of Maya in the form of a woman. So like that, Lord Kapila is telling in this verse. Hare Krishna, any questions?
Some disturbance, Prabhuji.
So, okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Here Prabhupada writes one line, the second sentence. One has to study the captivating potency of woman and man's attraction for that potency. In the same paragraph, in the next page, Prabhupada writes, the captivating power of woman and man's susceptibility to such attraction must also exist in the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world and must be presented in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So 2 points. One is Maya has captivating potency, especially Maya in the form of woman has captivating potency. The second point is that Prabhupada writes in the next part, but a devotee can become susceptible to this captivating potency of Maya. The example is Srila Haridas Thakur. So Prabhupada talks about Haridas Thakur very nicely. And also Prabhupada talks about the attractive potency between Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani and other gopis of Vrindavan. So that attraction is not the attraction which is being talked about in these verses in this chapter. Both are, there's a gulf of difference between these two. So it is like that. So then, in conclusion, Lord Kapila says the precautionary note. Sangam na kuryat pramadastu jatu yogasya param paramaru rukshu Masevaya pratilabdatma labho vadantiya niraya dwaramasya.
Sangam na kurya
Sujatu
Yoga
Param
Paramarukho Matsevaya Pratilabdhatmalabha Vadantiya.
One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized himself by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman. For such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. Thank you, Prabhu.
This is the precautionary note. Neither the jnani striving for the perfection of yoga. Of course, jnani also includes Ashtanga yogi. Neither the practitioner of jnana yoga or Ashtanga yoga striving for the perfection of yoga, that is to attain liberation, nor the devotee who has attained realization of Atma by service to me should be never attached to women, whom the wise say are the doors to hell for any man. Vadanti ya niraya dwaramasya. Attachment to women is the door to hell. That is what the wise people say. So therefore, the practitioners of Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga who are aspiring for liberation or the practitioners of bhakti who are aspiring to go back home back to God and serve me in person should never become attached to women, because the attachment to women is the door to hell for any man. Because of this, neither the jnani aspiring to attain liberation, paramparam, nor the devotee who has realized the Atma should have attachment to women. According to the logic of the person lying down cannot fall any further. If one is karmi, then it is not a fault to associate with women. But association with women is not denied for the practitioner of karma. Whether it is sakama karma or nishkama karma, they can be in the association of women, attached to women. The concept I will discuss in the next verse. What is the meaning of the association with women? Why it is not too much denied in these verses, etc., etc. We will discuss in the next verse. But the one interesting understanding is that the practitioners of jnana and the practitioners of Ashtanga Yoga, the prerequisite is sannyasa, or at least vanaprastha order. In order to practice jnana yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, one need to be either in vanaprastha or one need to be in sannyasa order. Then only they can practice. That itself is prerequisite. So that itself indicates disassociation with women. Okay. Then now, for the devotees also, association with women is negated in order to progress in their spiritual life. So what kind of association with women is negated? That we will discuss in the next verse. So with this verse, at least as per my little understanding, the entire concept becomes clear. So here Lord Kapila says that Yopayati Shanirmaya Yoshideva Vinirmita Tam Ikshe Tatmano Mrutyum Trinai Kupa Ivavrutam.
Upayati Shanirmaya
Yoshideva Vinirmita
Tam
Mrityum The women created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass.
Finally, the woman is compared with a blind well, and the final conclusion Lord Kapila gives. He says that Maya, in the form of a woman, created by the Lord Deva Vinirmita, approaches the man gently. Upayati Shanai. One should see her as death, like a well covered with grass, like a blind well covered with grass. The woman is compared to a blind well covered with grass, and that woman approaches a man very gently in order to bewilder that man. So what is the understanding is, knowing one's detachment. When a man is detached, not interested in the association of women, then the woman shows off her own lack of desire and approaches him in the guise of service. So Maya, in the form of a woman, approaches a detached man, saying that I am also detached. I also don't have any desire. I just want to serve you and serve in your company. She then becomes a source of disturbance. Therefore, no one should even go near that woman who is compared to a blind well. Therefore, whether one is practicing jnana, ashtanga yoga or bhakti, not supposed to go to a woman who is compared to a blind well, because whether one is completely indifferent, having bhakti or jnana or ashtanga yoga or vairagya, whether one is unconscious from madness or sleeping or even dead, one should avoid women completely, because the woman is compared to a blind well. Why? What is the problem with attachment to women? It is said that, okay, the blind well, basically the blind well says that blind well is nicely, is a well covered with grass on the top. When we are walking on the path, roadway, so we understand that, okay, this is also normal road. When we step on that, the grass which is covering a blind well, we are dropped into deep dark blind well. So now a man who is detached walking on the, compared to a person walking on the path, the surface is very strong, so one can go ahead. But the blind well which is covered by the grass looks like a strong path. So the woman which is coming in the disguise saying that I also do not have any desire, I am just coming to assist you, serve you, or serve the Lord in your company, something like that, is like a blind well. If a person steps on it or takes association of that woman seriously, a person becomes bound, is like falling into a blind well. That is understanding. So now, till now, all these verses very strongly talking about the association of women. So kindly understand, I am explaining to that there are the certain simple understanding of the woman is, the woman means here not the Jiva who is in the body of woman, not that association is condemned. The association of woman is condemned is from the point of view of looking at women as an object of enjoyment. That is condemned in these verses. The woman as a living entity is not at all condemned. But when the living entity is seen as an object of enjoyment, because that living entity is in the body of a woman, which is seen to be enjoyment, object of enjoyment, that association is condemned in these verses. So when a woman is seen as a mother, there is no problem. But when a woman is seen as an object of enjoyment, when that form, when the man sees that form of a woman as an object of enjoyment, gets attracted to that form, that leads to the bondage. The same way, actually there is a proverb says that a woman is a woman for man. Here the meaning of the woman means the sense object. A Jiva living in the form of a woman becomes the object of sense gratification for a man. Similarly, a man is a woman for woman. Similarly, a woman also sees the form of a Jiva living in the body of a male as an object of enjoyment. In that case, the body of the male per the man also becomes woman, because the meaning of the woman is the object of sense object. It does not matter whether it is the form of male form or female form. The female form becomes object of sense gratification for man, and the male form becomes object of sense gratification for woman. So that understanding of woman is condemned in these verses. Of course, till now all the verses talked about, especially the man becoming attracted to woman's bodily form and getting bound in this material world. The next couple of verses talks about a woman getting influenced by Maya in the form of male form. That is a bondage for a Jiva who is living in the female body. That is also attraction of Maya. That is also illusion caused by Maya. That will lead to further bondage. Whether one is a man or woman, should be careful with the form of opposite sex from the point of view of accepting the form of opposite sex as an object of sense gratification, not seeing them as the living entity. But when we see them only from the external covering, the external body, that concept will cause bondage in this material world. So with this understanding, we need to see these verses. So just by going through literal meaning of these verses, saying that, okay, woman is the cause of bondage, woman is the cause of bondage, so woman is ridiculed in that case. It is not like that. Woman's form is the cause of bondage for the man, and man's form is the cause of bondage for the woman. Either case, only when we see that form as an object of enjoyment. Otherwise, if we see that form as the womanly form as mother and manly form as father or guru, representative of guru, then there will be no more bondage in this material world. So that is the understanding we need to see from these verses. So that Lord Kapila mentions in the next two verses. He says that just as woman is the cause of problems for the man with bhakti and jnana, similarly, the form of man is a problem for woman with bhakti and jnana. That is explained in the next two verses. Even for all the Matajis who are practicing bhakti, who are actually willing to practice jnana or Ashtanga yoga, for them, the form of man is illusory attraction created by Maya Devi. So it is like that. When that form of man is seen as an object of enjoyment, then the woman becomes bewildered and bound in this material world. So the bondage is either way. We are not condemning anyone. We are just condemning the concept of object of enjoyment, which is the translation of the word woman. So in that way. In that way,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
But in Grihasthashram, it is very difficult that one should not develop attachment with the husband or wife, and still they should, because it is written that she comes in the life as slowly, and she comes as a servitor, and then she disturbs. So then how to understand it?
Yes, in the Grihasthashram, whether it is wife or husband or Prabhuji or Mataji, from my point of view. So if they see the opposite sex as an object of enjoyment, that is really cause a bondage. But if they see the other person, the spouse, as a devotee, then there will be no problem. See, when you say Grihasthashram, ashram itself will have so many rules and regulations that will keep us in safe zone. Instead of seeing it as a Grihasthashram, if we simply see as an opportunity for sense gratification, that will create bondage. That is the distinction between these two. That's why I'm saying that for a devotee, whether it is male or female, if they see the opposite sex an object of enjoyment, that is cause of bondage. But if they see the other person as a devotee, then there will be no problem. That becomes devotee association.
Okay.
So it is like that. So seeing the other person as woman is the problem. So man sees woman as a woman and woman sees man as a woman. So in keeping that in mind, you take the meaning out of our discussion.
Okay. Thank you, bro.
Correction. So here now Lord Kapila says that Yam manyate patim mohan manmayam rushabhayatim stritvam stri sangata prapto vitta patya grihapadam.
Yam
Yamanyate patimohan manmaya
Shamaitam
Stritvam
Sangata Prapto
Pradam.
So here Lord Kapila says this is the same understanding. The Jiva attaining the body of woman from thinking of a woman at the point of death. For example, currently we are discussing of a person who is in the mode of passion, has very strong attachment to woman. We are talking about a man literally who has strong attachment to woman all the way up to the point of death. At the time of death, thinking about that woman, thinking about the association of women, okay, that he will take birth as a woman in the next life. Obviously, that is what we have studied in the Bhagavad Gita. What was that verse? Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajiti ante kalaivaram. Whatever we think at the time of death, that is what we attain in the next life. If a person who is strongly attached to women throughout his life, default he thinks about women only at the time of death. So eventually he will get a woman's body in the next life. So then what happens? The Jiva attaining the body of a woman from thinking of woman at the point of death, out of illusion thinks of my Maya, which has taken the form of a man. If he becomes she and she becomes he. So previously he was attached to she, who is an expansion of Maya. Now that he became she and she becomes attracted to he, who is again the transformation of Maya. So then what she will think, and which has taken the form of man to be her husband. Now she thinks that man to be her husband, the giver of wealth, the giver of sons, and the giver of house. And then she becomes very much attracted to the man, because that man will give the wealth, sons, and house. The bondage continues. The Jiva who thinks of woman at the point of death, becoming a woman, thinks of the Maya who now acts as a man, as her husband. And she becomes very much attracted to that husband, because that husband is giving her the wealth, the sons, and the house. And becomes attracted. And for the entire life, she becomes attracted to he. At the time of life, at the time of death, she gives up her body thinking of him, thinking of her husband. In the next life, she will get the body of a man. And the woman gets the body of a woman. And the husband gets the body of a woman. And like that, the mutual attraction will go on life after life. This is how the bondage is there in this material world. Are you able to follow the concept, what is being described in this verse?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Here, Shastra is neither condemning the woman nor condemning the man. Shastra is condemning the concept of attachment between the opposite sex. Especially, we are talking about the person, the mode of passion. This attachment is very strong. Tam atmano vijaniyat pati apatya grihatmakam daivopasaditam mrutyum mrugayorgayanam yata.
Tamatmano vijaniyat
Pati apatya grihatmakam daivopasadatam mrityum
mrugayorgayanam
yata.
Someone read the translation.
A woman therefore should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer.
So in the previous verse, it is said that that man after death who became woman becomes attracted or becomes attached to her husband. Okay, because that husband will give her the wealth, sons, and house. So with that, what happens now? She should understand that Maya, in the form of her husband, children, and house, supplied by fate, supplied by destiny, supplied by Daiva, is her own death. Just as the deer should understand that the song of the hunter is death. The deer may be attracted by the song played by the hunter. When the deer comes toward the direction where the sound is coming from, the deer becomes bound by the net. Similarly, if a woman becomes attracted by the husband, the children, and the house provided by the husband, she becomes bound in this material world. If at all she is desired to go back to Godhead, she should not become attracted by the aspect of that husband as an object of sense gratification, and the aspect of the children and the house as an object of sense gratification. Shastra never condemns having an husband, having children, and having house. But Shastra condemns the concept that the husband and the house and the children are the source of one's material enjoyment in this material world. That concept is condemned.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, one doubt. Prabhuji, when we say ki on a grihastha life, we can have wife, we can have children, we can have either way spouse. Then without the attraction, all this, grihastha ashram cannot be made. Even if we are having a regulated life, still also we have a attraction, no?
There are attraction is there, but what kind of attraction, with what motive that attraction is there? Of course, in our newfied state, there could be attraction from the bodily platform, that is okay. But having understood what are the rules and regulations that we are supposed to follow, we have to gradually come out of that external attraction, then we should develop the internal attraction on the platform of soul, not on the platform of body.
Okay. But Prabhuji, Prabhuji here, on this discussion, or Prabhupada or Srimad Bhagavatam, the regulative principle is there, and one is certainly has to follow them. But on a bodily platform, attraction and soul level attraction, both are, if a Grihastha family is very much regulated and living a life of soul level attraction, then how come they will go to the, a devotee child or whatever we say? How that is possible? Soul level, all these things are not possible, isn't it, Prabhu?
And no, Prabhuji, no, it is possible. In a nectar of devotion, if you remember, the first 10 items are do's, the next 10 items are don'ts. So one of the first 10 items is Sarvartakila Chesta. One need to perform all the activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So Shastra never condemns a person earning money or earning livelihood, earning properties, or constructing a beautiful home, getting married and begetting children. These are not condemned. Shastra always recommends how to do and what to do. The prescription is recommended. Now currently we are discussing all these verses, especially for a person in the mode of passion. I'm strictly saying one point is that a person who is predominantly in the mode of passion does not even start bhakti, does not even take practice to the path of bhakti only. Then we cannot expect any kind of rules and regulations, following of rules and regulations in that person at all. So bhakti comes in the mode of goodness. The ability to follow or the conviction to follow some rules and regulations will come only in the mode of goodness. Even the person may not be fully in the mode of goodness, but whatever little mode of goodness will make that person strong enough to practice the rules and regulations. So we need to improve our amount of mode of goodness as we cultivate the process of bhakti more and more as we grow up in our life. So bhakti shastras never say no to constructing a home or getting married or begetting children. They always tell how to do it. That is Sarvartha Akila Chesta. Yajnartat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So constructing a home or getting married or begetting children all these should be performed as a service to Supreme Lord. That's why we have all the samskaras.
Yes, sure.
So following that procedure, there is no problem at all.
Yes, sure.
Prabhuji, and Krishna says the dharma viruddha, according
Dharma
to
viruddho
dharma.
bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava.
Yeah.
That attraction between man and woman not contrary to principles of religion are me. Because Lord is just saying that principle is represented by him only. It is one of his vibhuti. So it is not denied at all.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So in that way, Prabhuji. So currently the verses we are talking about a person in the mode of passion, and devotee activities comes in the mode of goodness. So even much more than that. So there, at least because of the influence of the mode of goodness, they have that impetus to follow the rules and regulations. In the mode of passion, they may say, okay, I will follow, but they will not continue to follow. The mode of passion does not allow only. So that's how it is. The mode of passion, the principal nature is always hankering, more and more happiness, more and more this, more that. So it is like that. For example, if you see in the previous verse, so what is mentioned? The woman sees the man as to be her husband, because the husband gives wealth, husband gives sons, husband gives house. So people in the mode of passion, they always anchor for more and more wealth, more and more houses, more and more properties, and more sons and more things for their sons, something like that. So this is always there in the mode of passion, people in the mode of passion. So it's like that. She should understand that Maya in the form of husband and the sons to be death. Just as the deer should understand that the song of the greedy hunter, though pleasurable, is death. If at all a woman want to progress spiritually and attain perfection, she should see the bodily attachment between the husband and children as the and house as the death. So this is the concept which Lord Kapila. Now Lord Kapila is speaking the verses from the point of view of developing renunciation. With this renunciation, a person can upgrade from the mode of passion to mode of goodness. That is the last few verses in this chapter, which takes a person from mode of passion to mode of goodness. In the mode of passion, the person, both man and woman, are too much attached to each other, and they work very hard in order to fulfill their demands. But if at all they want to upgrade themselves to mode of goodness, they need to see the association of opposite sex is the cause of bondage. The association of the opposite sex on the bodily platform is the cause of bondage. Then they gradually rise to the platform of goodness, and then they practice. They follow the prescriptions of the Vedic literatures which speak about so many rules and regulations. Then they become freed from the material bondage. So that is the understanding which Lord Kapila gives in the upcoming chapter. So now finally one more concept which can help a person in the mode of passion to rise to the mode of goodness. So that will be described in the remaining verses 43 to 48. So we try to briefly cover these verses. So repeated birth and death of the Jiva by Sakama Karma is described. Here Lord Kapila says that Dehena di Jiva Bhutena Loka Lokam Manuvrajan Bunjana Eva Karmani Karoti Aviratam Puman.
Dehena Jiva
Bhutena
Loka
Lokam Manuvrajan Bunjena Eva Karmani Karoti Aviratam Puman.
Translation.
Due to his particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from the one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly.
So the person in the mode of passion thinks that the body is the source of enjoyment, and the body of one's own spouse and children and the house, vehicles, bank balance, properties are the source of enjoyment. This is the symptom of mode of passion. If at all one want to come out of that mode of passion and rise to mode of goodness, so one need to understand this concept which Lord Kapila now speaking about, the temporary nature of this material body and the positions. The Jiva wanders from the earth to other planets by his subtle body for enjoying the results of his actions, and completing that enjoyment or suffering, again returns to the earth to perform further actions. So here Lord Kapila is telling that, so my dear sir, don't think that this body is all in all and this body is permanent. Not like that. Whatever good or bad activities that you perform now, you will have to experience them. The results of those activities you will have to experience in the next life. How? Because after the death of this gross body, you will get a new gross body. If you do good activities, you might go to upper planets and enjoy happily. If you do bad activities, you will go to hell and suffer very badly. That concept is telling that, indicating that this body is not permanent, it is temporary. It will only last for some 60 to 80 years. So like that, something like that. There is a doubt. The Jiva enjoys the results in Swarga or other planets by giving up the body by which he performs sinful or pious activities. What is the logic in that? One should experience the results in the same body. When I am performing activities in this body, I should experience results now only. How can you say that I will experience results in the next life? One may say like that. Then the Lord Kapila says that, no, not like that. One enjoys the results with a body by which he performed his activities. That is by the subtle body. So currently, the determination to perform an activity The proper planning to perform an activity is performed by our subtle body. It actually made by our subtle body. The mind desires, the intelligence plans, and the gross body executes. So since the subtle body is making the plans and desiring the activities, the same subtle body will experience the results in the next life. So by the subtle body, one wanders from the earth to Swarga or to hell. If one made a plan to perform sinful activity, one will go to Naraka and experience the results. If one made a plan to perform auspicious activities, one will go to Swarga and experience the results. The plan making and determination to perform that activity is performed by the subtle body. So by subtle body, one experience the results. So he performs actions by the acquisition of false identity caused by the subtle body. Going to other places is possible because of the Jiva's illusion and karma. In that place, he enjoys or suffers. Because by our mind we desire, because by our intelligence we plan, and though we may get the results in the same life or not, but in the next life we suddenly get the results. And saying that, Lord Kapila says that because by your subtle body you desired to perform that activity, and that subtle body will experience the results. So it is like that. Finishing that enjoyment, he again returns to this earth. He then performs further actions to get more happiness. So one may say that, okay, no problem, it is very good. I do pious activities, I will go to Swarga and enjoy, I will live there eternally. So Lord says, no, not like that. You cannot stay in Swarga for long. You need to come back again to earth. That cannot continue for a long time. You need to come back. That is also temporary. Even though you may get superior enjoyment in the heaven, but that is also temporary. That is not permanent. Thus one performs actions and enjoys in the subtle body. This is explained in this verse. So it is like that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
one doubt now. Suppose today I'm going through some problem and I want some money, and tomorrow that situation may not be there and I may not desire that money at that point of time. So then my desire won't be there for money, but then this desire for money today which I am having, that will be fulfilled in that may not be fulfilled in this body and it will be fulfilled in next body. Then what is the use? Means in this circumstance I want this, and when circumstance change, my desire changes. So then
but desire was there, you made a plan for it, you also acted upon that. That action will give the result. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next life. When some desire is there, when some action is performed, result will definitely come. It may come tomorrow or in the next life or next to next life. That we don't know. That will be determined by karma.
Yes, but I don't want in that next life, or I just want in this circumstance. Now, but suppose I'm hungry.
You already decided. Since you have already decided, you already made a plan, you already performed activity to fulfill the desire, the result will come.
But then if it comes in next life, then what is, now I want food. Now I'm performing activity to get the food. So if now I am not getting food, and in next life, say if I'll get lot of food, then what is the, means how I am satisfied with that?
Yeah, that is the principle of karma. We think that everything is under our control. Not that. There are some superpowers are controlling our destiny. That is the problem with this material world. If everything is in our control, that I desire something and it will be done today, then we are the Lord. We are not Jiva.
Yes.
So we need to accept the control of destiny, control of karma. When the result will come, how it will come is not in our control. What is in our control is that the desire and the action. These two are in our control.
And if I desire that my desires should not be fulfilled, then
yeah, that is what we should come to. That is what is called rakama. We should not have any material desires. We should have only one desire, just to please the Supreme Lord. Then we are not bound in this material world. We are ready to go back to Godhead.
Okay.
So it is okay. Jivo I asyanugo deho bhutendriyamanomaya tannirodosya maranam avirbhavastu sambhava.
Jivo hi
hi asyanugo deho bhutendriya manomaya tannirodho asya
मरणम्
avirbhavastu
आविर्भावस्तु
sambhava.
सम्भवः.
Someone read the translation.
In
In
this
this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his previous particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth.
The same question, this is the answer to your question. Here it says that the subtle body and the gross body, following the soul, combine together and become the body known as the gross body, senses, and mind. The disintegration of this combination is death for the Jiva, and its recombination is called birth. We have two bodies, gross body as well as the subtle body. Gross body made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, along with their 5 properties, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. The 10 elements are there in the gross body. And the remaining 14 elements form our subtle body. Man, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chetana, 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. All these 14 elements combined together is called subtle body. These two bodies, gross body and subtle body, always follow the soul. At the time of death, the gross body is destroyed and the soul with the subtle body enters into the womb of another mother and develops a new gross body. When the gross body and subtle body come together, that is called birth. When the gross body and subtle body separate with each other, that is called death. So here Lord Kapila is saying that a person in the mode of passion may think that this body is all in all, this is always will be with me. This is the source of my enjoyment. I can enjoy permanently. Lord says that no, my dear sir, it is not like that. You have got two bodies. One is gross body, one is subtle body. Your subtle body desires, makes plans, and gross body executes that activity. But this gross body does not last long. It will have limited time. At death, you need to give up this gross body. At new birth, you need to accept another gross body and continue to perform different activities, continue to enjoy, continue to suffer. So nothing is permanent in this material world. Even though you may go to heaven to enjoy, that is also not permanent. So kindly understand that impermanent nature of this material world. If at all you want perpetual happiness, rise to mode of goodness and take up to jnana, yoga or bhakti and go back home back to Godhead. Otherwise, one is subject to the temporary nature of this material world and going through misery again and again. So it is like that. So that concept is being indicated here in this verse. Basically, what is the meaning of birth? What is the meaning of death? As you have mentioned, Prabhupada says that for the purpose of fulfilling one desire, we get a gross body. When the desire is fulfilled, that gross body will be destroyed. And in order to fulfill another desire, we take another gross body. When that is fulfilled, we are done with. So for example, if one want to be glorified as a IAS officer, so for which that is a desire that is not fulfilled in the past life, but in this life, we will take birth in a family where the environment is favorable, where the parents are oriented towards to make their children as an IAS officer. They will give good education or suitable education. Eventually, that person becomes an IAS officer at the age of 25. Then he will continue as an IAS officer all the way up to 60 till the time of retirement. Even afterwards, also he will be glorified as an ex-IAS officer till the time he dies. Even at the time of death, he will be glorified as a wonderful, great, gentle, and moral, ethical IAS officer. The desire is fulfilled. And while living in this life, he might have developed another desire. So next life, I want to become the prime minister. So further, he might want to become the prime minister. So currently, it may not be suitable. So in the next life, he will be taking birth in a suitable family, where in a political family. So eventually, grow up in that environment, and he will eventually become prime minister and live a whole life in that cadre, and he will be glorified as a Parmeshwara for the entire life. Like that, one's desire will be fulfilled and facilitated by material nature. So in order to fulfillment one desire, one takes birth. Basically, the combination of gross body, spiritual body, they both of them come together. And when that is done, they both go separate. So this is the concept of birth and death in this material world. And this concept does not applicable in the heaven and hell.
Means what, Prabhuji? Not applicable to heaven and hell.
For example, in the hell, there are different hellish planets. Bhagavatam 5th canto talks about the person keeps dying and keeps born. So if a person is subjected to some hell, so where he will be beaten by Yamadutas, some 1,000 Korodas. Actually, from our point of view, 1,000 Korodas, one will die. But it on the hellish planets point of view, after 5 Korodas only will be died. And immediately will be revived. He will be given new body where he can continue to go through pains. He will be beaten again 5 more. He will die. Again he will be revived. Again he will go through 5 Korodas. So like that. In one sense, there is no death in the heavenly hellish planets. Same way, there is no death in the heaven. In the heaven, no one sees somebody dying. When one's tenure is over, one will be thrown out of heaven. But in the Bhuloka, we see birth and death continuously happening. At our place, birth is a huge procedure. The mother need to go through 9 months pregnancy period. And after 9 months pregnancy, the parents need to go through a lot of hectic, raising the child. First 1 year, like every day and night, the parents need to go through without sleep, without this, without that, full care. Even after that also, all the way up to 5 to 10 years, when the child can do his own things on his own, the parents need to take care. A lot of effort is required in the child care, child birth. But in the heaven, as soon as the father and mother conceive together, within a muhurta, child is born. And within another muhurta, the child becomes youthful, the teenager. There is no anxiety of child birth and child growth, child care. Are you getting, Mataji?
Yes, in heaven, no?
In upper planet, there is no child, there is no anxiety of child birth, no problem of going through 10 months pregnancy, no problem of baby care. In 2 muhurtas, child is born and child becomes youthful teenager, some 18 years old or something like that.
Okay.
Bas, done. But here, it is a big procedure, birth and growth. So it is like that.
So Prabhuji, for getting food also, we should not have desire, and we should desire like we want to serve Krishna and we want to offer Krishna food, and then we should take prasadam. That is why we desire to get food when we are hungry. That is also causing us bondage.
No, we are not talking about a devotee. A person in the mode of passion, he always thinks about food only. Okay, let me go to this restaurant today, let me go to that restaurant tomorrow. He always want to know about which restaurant is offering what kind of cuisine and which is best, which is good, which is this, which is that. So they are always after that. But for us, we don't have such kind of problems. Whatever we have at home, we prepare and offer to the deities and take it. So our desires are very much limited.
Yeah, that's why we say that we should prepare for Krishna, because otherwise also when we are hungry, sometimes we feel that we should cook something. Means that comes, the desire comes that for ourselves only first. Means,
no problem. That is for the maintenance of the body. For maintaining body, no problem. There is no issue.
Okay.
Just for tongue pleasure, if we desire, that maybe in the initial days we may be having that, but eventually as the time progresses, it won't be there so much. We don't have to worry so much.
Okay.
That is not a problem. That is all just to maintain the body. Sometimes to maintain the mind, some fascinating desires of the mind. That's okay. That is not a big problem. They will not cause bondage.
Okay.
It is not that, okay, because I have this desire, I will not chant 16 rounds. It should not go to that extent.
Yeah.
So it will never go, I hope.
No.
It's okay. For one day we may want to have some special feast. That's okay. That is required actually. We cannot avoid that. So by the way, Krishna also will have feast. Initially, we may think that okay, we want to have feast. Let Krishna have feast. Later it should become otherwise. Let me give feast to Krishna, and by the way, I will also have feast. So it's like that. So what is the time now? So it's already 45. 3 more verses are there. I will just read through the translation and explain, and we will close when this chapter gets completed. So the same concept Lord Kapila is continuing. He says that when the gross objects of the earth cannot be perceived by the gross organ of perception because the gross body has been destroyed, it is called death, even though the subtle body still exists. So basically at the time of death, our gross body becomes useless. Our mouth cannot speak, our nostril cannot breathe, our eyes cannot see, our ears cannot hear, our skin cannot touch. So since they does not do anything, though subtle body is still there, the subtle body cannot be active. That is called death. By identifying with another gross body, birth takes place. This is the cause of seeing gross objects again. After death, when the soul along with the subtle body enters into the womb of another mother, and after birth, after 9 months pregnancy, when it comes out of the womb only, can starts breathing, starts talking, starts seeing, starts hearing, starts touching. That is called birth. Similarly, this is the cause of seeing gross objects again. That is called birth. Similarly, when the gross eyeball becomes incapable of seeing gross objects because of disease, the subtle eye sense organ of a person becomes incapable of seeing. So for a person, even though the internal sense organ is very proper, can see, but as soon as the gross eyeball, the fleshy eyeball becomes damaged because of some disease or because of some accident, he cannot see. When the gross eyeball is replaced with a new gross eyeball donated by somebody else, one can start seeing. So with this example, when the gross body becomes useless, till the time we get a new gross body, our subtle body cannot do any activities. So it is like that. That is the state after death. That is what is indicated here. And in the final verse, Lord Kapila says, because there is no real birth and real death for the soul, one should not be horrified and one should not be so miserable, or one should not be so eager to enjoy in this material world. Therefore, kindly understanding the goal of Jiva with intelligence, one should move in this world free from attachment. So this is the instruction for a person who want to raise from mode of passion to mode of goodness. So Lord Kapila is saying that, my dear sir, kindly understand that there is no real death for the soul. There is no real death for the real birth for the soul. You are actually not the body. You are actually the soul. The soul does not have any death, any birth. Because from our normal point of view, when somebody dies, we become horrified. The family members become miserable. And when a person gets birth and becomes youthful, teenager, they become eager to enjoy the world. So don't become attracted by these things. Understand that the goal of Jiva, the goal of Atma is not to enjoy in this material world or not to become miserable. Instead, to go back to Godhead. Developing that discrimination, developing that aim in life, wander in this verse like an indifferent person without any attachment. It is like that. Since one understands that the Atma does not take birth or die, one should not be horrified. This is the transition from Rajas to Sattva. When one develops this kind of understanding, one transits to mode of goodness. Samyak darshanaya buddhya yoga vairagya yuktaya maya virachite loke charanyasya kalevaram. Therefore, one should move about in this world made up of maya while giving up attachment to the gross body or even subtle body. But by utilizing the correct vision, by utilizing one's intelligence, by the performance of Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, one should practice their sadhana and go back to Godhead. So this is possible only when one comes to mode of goodness. So Lord Kapila telling that by understanding the previous verse, developing the proper discrimination, raise yourself to mode of goodness, then take shelter of Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and then Bhakti Yoga, then go back home back to Godhead. So this is the transition that is needed for a person who is in the mode of passion to mode of goodness, so that one can take seriously the practice of Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Hare Krishna. Hope you are able to follow the sequence of verses.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandavat
Thank you.
Pranam, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Prabhu.
much.
Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you.